Come on, let's live out loud, let's love out loud, let's do it some more. Come on, come on, come on, come on, let's live out loud, let's love out loud, let's do it some more, let's do it some more. Enjoying the beat, oh, yeah, it's time to go, it's time to go. Live our life, love our life, let's do it some more. Enjoying the beat, enjoying the beat, yeah, it's time to go, yeah, it's time to go. Living our life, loving our life, let's do it some more, yeah. So come on. Living our lives, loving our lives, let's do it some more. Come on.
And good evening, and welcome to Njoyn the PM Positive Motivations with yours truly, Joy Brown. I am excited today to be here with my guest, Gene Hoskins. Did I say your last name correctly?
You did. You
I
passed
did.
the test. A lot of people fail the test, but you get an A.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Good evening and welcome to WBIS Awesome Radio 106.9 LPFM to Enjoying the PM Positive Motivations with yours truly, Joy Brown, and Talk It Out with Joy on GPAC 23. I am excited about being here on this evening. Today is a wonderful day. It's a gorgeous day. I pray that each and every one had the opportunity to fellowship, whether it was virtual or if it was face to face. We are excited that we had another day and another opportunity to give God all the praise, the glory, and the honor. I am excited today about talking to Mr. Hoskins. First of all, I want to just jump right in. Tonight, we are going to talk about the mind. Mind. It's the mind for me. And it's so important because of the simple fact, a lot of times we overlook something that's really important and very major in the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. And I say that a lot of times when we have pain, just like when I injured my foot, I went to a podiatrist. When I had problems with my heart, I went to a cardiologist. So when I was faced with the opportunity, not the opportunity, but I had a challenge that was going on in my life. And a lot of times people were telling me, hey, let's just pray. We'll pray. And God is going to deliver. God is going to set you free. But then when I go home, that problem is right back there again. And it's not that I didn't trust God. But today, I'm telling you, I can truly say that I love God and I love my therapist too.
Come on.
And today, we have a psychologist from Durham, North Carolina.
Yes.
Gene, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Gene Hoskins. I am a master's level psychologist here in the state of North Carolina. I have been doing mental health for over 12 years in different capacities. Currently, right now, I have my own practice. It's called Peace of Mind Psychological Services. And I believe, our mantra is whole thoughts, whole mind, whole person. And I tell people we don't realize how important our mindset and mentality impacts where we are, where we're going, and what we intend to do throughout life, our relationships, how we see things. It literally shapes our perspective. And so one thing I endeavor to do is to kind of strip down misconceptions about mental health that we've kind of grown to hold on to as African Americans, a minority, and what we tend to hold on to as people who are believers in Christ. Because some things that we're kind of saying isn't necessarily true, and it's not God's will for our life. And so I'm excited that we get to kind of talk about that today.
Yeah. So, Gene, tell me, first of all, there has to be a passion. It has to be a passion to work with people that have problems, because we all have problems, but to be able to listen to problems and not only listen to them, but give resolutions. What is your passion? What drives you towards helping people, especially those with mental health issues?
Yeah, this career actually found me. So originally I thought I was gonna be a dentist, and yeah, I know. And I took a class.
Wow.
I took a class in high school, and I was taking a test, and I did really well. And then I remember the next time I took a test, my teacher looked at me the entire test, and I was like, I don't know why he's staring at me, you know. And then we got the test back. He said, you know, he told the class, I thought he was cheating because of the type of answers that he was given for the problem. But I
Hmm.
realized, no, he literally knows this stuff. And then I remember something clicked in my head, like, okay, I never considered this, but you know, went to school. You want to see Chapel Hill? I'm about to be a dentist, you know, taking
Uh-huh.
all these classes that are beating my tail, amen, but God.
Wow.
And and then I said, but I'm gonna still do a major in psychology and sociology just
Hmm.
to have, and then I'm gonna go, you know, get my other sciences and work for the boys dental school and be this dentist and do all these people teeth and make a whole bunch of money. And I remember I started preparing for dental school. I got all my classes out the way, wasted thousands of dollars, and I said, you know what? I'm supposed to be doing mental health. And the quest for pursuing what was ordained for me began.
Mm.
And then the rest is history. I moved to this area with the Central and ended up doing stuff at Duke. And now I'm here. And I realized my passion is mental health, is people.
Mm.
And I realized my passion is assisting and facilitating healing. And so the venue I'm doing it through mental health is one way, but I also do it through music.
Hmm.
And so because my passion is people, God kind of gives me strategy for whatever condition it is or
Hmm.
they're in. And so it just so happens for this particular aspect of what I do, he gives me strategy for the mind.
Wow. Wow. Now, talk to me a little bit about the credentialing in the field of mental health for
Oh,
you.
it's different. So we have different types of therapists. You have those with social workers
Hmm.
who end up going to school and become licensed clinical social workers
Hmm.
who have the ability to do therapy. You have counselors. They have a different schooling process. Then you have us who end up going a psychology route. Ours is
Hmm.
more scientific. We do a lot more research, and then we do testing. So I do testing for IQ, ADHD, autism, emotional behavioral testing. I kind of do a lot of that. And so it's different kinds of things. But what I did is you have to go to undergrad, of course, but you
Hmm.
have to go to at least a master's program. And then many people go to get a PhD. It just so happened to say in North Carolina, I was able to kind of matriculate through the master's program and do well in that way. I was able to kind of make a sustainable living. Also, I think the benefit is I'm a black male, and
Hmm.
men make up, I think, 2%. Black men
Oh,
make up 2 and
yes.
1%. And
Yes.
so it's literally like when they see me on the website, him. I don't care if he's good or not, but I want him. And luckily, God,
Wow.
luckily, I believe I'm good.
Mhm.
And so it's been a blessing for me.
I'm glad that you mentioned that concerning, especially in the African American community, especially our Black men.
Mm,
Um, let's talk about the stigma
mm,
that's carried over into our community,
mhm,
especially for Black and brown people.
mhm.
Let's talk about that stigma.
Yeah, you know what? It is a stigma. I tell people it is not one that is um, preposterous. I think it
Mhm.
came from our history with medicine. When you think about Tuskegee Institute and experiments, different experiments, you think of Henrietta Lacks, and all these individuals where the history books tells us that we were considered almost like test animals. A lot of those particular stories our families kind of told us about or kind of passed down the anxiety related to going to see the doctor. Even now, when we see how African American women and birth and the disproportionate deaths and complications they have with birth, I mean, we have these ideas about healthcare that are not misguided. So we just have to put people in those places that know us, understand us culturally, and really care about us. Am I saying that every doctor is bad? Absolutely not. Every cop isn't bad, every preacher isn't bad. But we do have a history that kind of tells us or lends us to believe that the system itself really doesn't care for us. So that idea is one that is not far fetched, being that we have a history of saying things like the aforementioned Tuskegee Institute and Henrietta Lacks and so on and so forth.
BIS, Awesome Radio 106.9 LPFM. Okay, he can hear me now. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vernon. All right. So let me ask you about this. Let's tie it into the church. Let's talk about the church. Let's talk about the importance of getting mental health in the church. Now, one thing that I can truly say that really blessed my heart when there was a death that impacted a lot of people at the church. And I remember this particular Sunday because one of my friends actually came to church with me that Sunday.
Mm.
And instead of having a normal or regular church service, what everyone is accustomed to on a Sunday morning, Bishop took out the time to talk about death and to talk about grieving. And then you came up and you did a session that impacted me so much because so many times we want to pray about it and leave it alone. Let's talk about it in the church.
Absolutely. So, and I get it. Keep in mind, psychology, the idea of mental health is still, we call it considered a baby discipline. It's not as old as biology and chemistry and those and sciences like that. We're also considered a soft science, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so a lot of times people believe because you can't see it, it then becomes almost like esoteric or fantasy, right? Or
Mhm.
does it
Mhm.
actually exist? Is somebody contriving this presentation? Are they making it up? Are they putting on? Are they
Mhm.
being
Yeah.
dramatic, right? And
Mhm.
so it's like, how do you define? How do you operationalize? How do you make sense of what people saying that's going on?
Mhm.
And so what we've done in the church, because it's relatively new and because it has to deal with the mind,
Mhm.
and, emotions, we've somehow made it spiritual all the time. And
Mhm.
I tell
Mhm.
people that's not always the case.
Yes.
And I think it's very lazy for us to make it spiritual all the time. I tell people when you have heart issues, you have diabetes and
Mhm.
hypertension and high cholesterol, and fibromyalgia. We
Mhm.
never really, oftentimes, 95% of the time, we never say it's rooted in something spiritual.
Yes. Yes.
We said it's a physiological
Mhm.
impairment that if
Mhm.
we go
Mhm.
to the doctor, they would give a solution and they would pair it with some kind of, medicine. I
Mhm.
don't,
Mhm.
for some reason, because it's the mind and it's not physical, we automatically believe it has to be spiritual. And I was
Mhm.
like, no, people don't understand the correlation between the mental and physical. There are some things that can happen with your emotions and how you see
Mhm.
things that
Yeah.
translates to you physically.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily spiritual, that's just how it is.
Mhm.
And one thing I love about God is God gave us our emotions to
Mhm.
appraise the world around us and let us know how we feel about certain things. The
Yes.
Bible says be angry, but what?
Sin not.
Sin not. So the
Mhm.
Bible told me I could be angry, just
Mhm.
don't sin while you're doing it. So you're telling
Yeah.
me that God has let me know it's okay to embrace the emotions I gave you.
Mhm.
There's a time for mourning, right?
Yes.
They talk
Yes.
about the laughter and joy among friends and family. The
Mhm.
Bible oftentimes talks about emotions
Yes.
and being whole.
Mhm.
And I also believe that God wants us to prosper and be in good health, even as our
Yes.
soul prospers.
Yes.
Our soul is the seat of our emotion. And
Mhm.
so you're saying
Mhm.
God wants us to be physically whole, but emotionally, He wants us to be whole there too, and in our mind. And a lot
Yes.
of us are trying to spiritualize things that you really need to talk to somebody about. And what's
Mhm.
happening, the one thing I love about Bishop Ronald Garvey is he
Mhm.
called every time it's something that's like, he said, this is out of my boundaries of competence. He calls and said, let me bounce this off you because
Mhm.
I don't want to give information that could be
Yes.
detrimental to them later.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
my goal is I've been going to different churches. I'm pairing up with certain churches, youth departments. We're doing group sessions. I'm
Oh,
going
wow.
into churches. I'm talking to their leadership about mental health.
Mhm.
At our church, I've done some of our leadership programs as well. And as you
Mhm.
see on some, we have very hard seasons. Like when
Mhm.
COVID first started,
Yes.
me and Bishop went up there. We talked about coping strategies. A few months ago, we had two tragic deaths within a week.
Mm.
And we were really just as a church body
Mhm.
disappointed. And God literally used what we did that day to begin to set people free. And so
Yes.
I believe God is
Yes.
allowing people like myself who are saved, who
Mhm.
also are educated in the
Mhm.
field, to kind of integrate those together to bring
Yes.
full healing and full deliverance to His people, not just physically.
Yes, yes. And that is so true because a lot of times you said it, you hit it, we spiritualize things. And just a transparent moment for me. I remember last year during this time, well, around maybe April, May, I went through a moment because I just turned 50 last year.
Go
And
ahead.
when I hit that 50 mark, I'm telling you, Gene, something happened mentally. It was just like a wake up call. And I began to do some self reflection, and it was just like I was praying and talking to the Lord about it one day. And He said, "What do you always tell other people when they come to you? You talk to them, you tell them, we'll pray about it, but then you also do what?" I said, "Tell them that they need to talk to someone that can literally help them transition from point A to point B. And you typically refer them out to the psychologist or therapist, And He said, the same thing that works for other people, why isn't that going to work for you?" And so it was just like I was, before mask became mandatory, I wore a mask and I
Mm,
presented to the world what they wanted to see, what they
everybody does.
expected me. Yeah.
A lot of people do that
Mhm.
because people find vulnerability difficult because people don't feel safe when they're vulnerable.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
and so a lot of people go around the world, and I didn't mean to interject,
No, you're
but
fine.
a lot of people go around the world wearing masks because when you're vulnerable,
Mhm.
um, sometimes you don't feel safe because of how people have mishandled you in the past,
Yes.
or you may not feel the people around you can handle your truth. And
Mhm.
so I tell people, and the discussion is today, it's the mind for me. And
Mhm.
with the mind comes having those positive relationships where you can take off your mask to breathe. I tell
Yes.
my clients all the time, you can be an actor for so long, but
Mhm.
acting is
Yes.
going to exert energy, it's going to make you tired. And then one day you're going
Yes.
to slip and the real person's going to come out.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
you might as well allow the real you to come to surface. Put the
Yeah.
mask down.
Mhm. And that
Put
is so
forth,
true.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, put forth your best self. Don't put forth somebody else, right?
Mhm. Mhm. And that is so true. And when you say that it is exhausting, because it is, because you can only keep up this charade but so long, and then it begins to take the effect in several ways. And talking to a therapist was the best thing that happened to me, because a lot of things that we deal with in our childhood, and let's talk about that as well, that we deal with in our childhood evolves in our adulthood, and we're trying to figure out about my thinking, why is my thinking pattern this way, or why am I reacting certain way. But then I didn't realize that a lot of things that I had endured as a child, I never talked about it. So now in my adulthood, I'm reacting, but then I didn't realize that it had an impact, that my childhood had that impact. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. We have to realize our first message is about the world around us, who we are, how we see the world,
Mhm,
um, our beliefs about systems and people and relationships all happen. We're socialized
mhm,
into the world around us by our mothers and our fathers and our uncles and our brothers and sisters and
mhm.
school, right? When you go to school, you're socialized how to sit down in the classroom and raise your hand and abide by rules. Your parents teach you do this, do that, do this, do that. And so what happens is you learn different things about the world around you based on the world that your parents took in.
Mm,
And so a lot of us get old and we have to figure out what about what I was taught is something that I can keep, and
mm,
what can I dispose of that I won't give to my children. It's kind of like eat the meat, throw out the bones, right?
yes.
But
Uh-huh.
other than that, there are some things that happen to us, and we call it trauma. That word is like a buzzword. People are using it. A lot of people are using it incorrectly.
Mhm,
But trauma, the definition of it is a deep emotional, psychological wound.
mhm.
Um, and because we can't see it, we feel like it's not there.
Yes.
And if I could be fully transparent, in my childhood, I had a trauma happen that I thought that I had overcome
Mm,
until I realized my relationships with people had become impacted. I struggled to tell you I love you. I struggled to be emotionally expressive.
mhm,
And I remember one day I was praying, and God said, God, I want to be emotionally expressive for marriage and my wife and my children when I get older. And I said, you know, help me heal. And I remember I started telling people I love them. And I was like, oh, this feels good. And I feel emotionally expressive. And God is healing me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't hear it anymore. I don't hear the pain anymore. I don't
Wow.
hear
Mm-hmm.
that point that I was broken. I don't hear it anymore. And I'm saying, remember telling God, thank you. Holla, we do. Thank you for healing me.
Uh-huh.
And, I remember praying, God said, just because it's silent doesn't mean it's dead.
Mm.
And so
Wow.
a lot of people are going around and they're putting rugs on mess. And you
Mm.
think because you're covering it up, it's not there.
Yes. Yes.
It's still going to stink. You're still going to walk over it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have to deal with things that broke you in the past. You're going to deal with relationships that broke
Yeah.
you in the past. You're going to deal with the molestation, the abuse, the bullying, because you carry some of that things with you as an adult, and then you act out of that trauma and you relive it in your relationships, and you
Mm-hmm.
then breed it again in your children and how you see things and how you love and your perspective.
Wow.
I tell people broken thinking equals broken perspective, and broken perspective impacts the reality around you. And many
Mm.
of us don't understand the reality around us is warped because our perspective is warped because our thinking is still rooted in trauma.
Wow. Wow, wow. And that is so important, and I'm very grateful that you are in that field and that you are very expressive and open when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, especially with like depression and grieving. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a
Mm,
little bit about depression and grieving because we have a lot of people that are walking around in a state of depression and they don't even know what's going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I tell people depression is kind of like putting on. I don't know if remember driver's ed. So I think I was probably the last. I took driver's ed in late '90s, early 2000s,
Mhm.
and they used to put those goggles on you, and it was kind of make you drunk. Like you felt like
Yeah.
you were drunk. You weren't necessarily drunk, but you
Uh-huh.
felt. So it was kind of depression is kind of walking around life in a haze, and a lot of people are walking around. It becomes norm. It's been normative for them to walk around in a
Mhm.
sense of despair, and nothing has color, loss of interest and whatnot. Now, what I'm realizing, depression is being another word that's being used quite a bit. Now, everything isn't depression, right?
Mhm.
We have very natural responses to things that happen to us as human beings. If
Mhm.
someone dies, you're going to be in a brief depression that is characteristic of grief. Is it a clinical depression? No. It becomes
Mhm.
clinical when we start seeing your functioning decreasing, right? That's
Mhm.
when your appearance goes down, you're now missing work, you're now isolated in the room. Some people even have, we call it suicidal ideations where
Mhm.
they don't want to either be here no more. Some have a plan, and some just say, you know what, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'll be okay. That's called passive
Wow.
suicidal ideations, right? Loss of interest, loss of appetite, just things begin, weight gain, weight loss,
Mhm.
issues of concentration. When we start seeing how it's impacting your life, then it becomes clinical. That's
Mm.
when I tell people the best approach for depression is to really get with a therapist because you really can get skills to deal with how you're seeing the world. It's how
Mm.
you're viewing the
Yeah.
world. Now there are some depressions that there's a root, in how neurotransmitters may be off. Right.
Mhm.
If that's
Mhm.
the case, then I'm a proponent of a combination approach. I call it psychopharmacology
Mhm.
along with therapy, maybe getting medicine to help you regulate your neurotransmitters. But typically with depression, when it's real, you
Mhm.
know it. But I tell people try to watch out for everything being depression because we're naturally sad for things that happen to us. That's
Right.
okay.
Absolutely.
But you look at it, how is it impacting your function over time? Then that's when it becomes a depression. And you mentioned something about grief. Can you ask the question again? Because that's a whole nother uh, thing.
Just asking you about, grief. How do you deal with that grief?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
sometimes that grief can transition into
Oh, yeah,
depression.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell people grief is interesting.
Mhm.
Grief has different stages. We talked about it. They added a new one called shock. You have
Mhm.
denial, anger, acceptance, bargaining, and different bargaining acceptance. And I tell people the end of grief is something we call integrated grief, and it's learning to live life in the absence of the thing you loved. People always feel like grief has to always be people and relationships. Grief could be the loss of a job you love. It could be the loss of a child. It could be a loss of a relationship that you really wanted to work out. What about a friendship? Absolutely. There are some friendships that you wanted to last forever,
Mm-hmm.
and it broke apart, and we grieve those. So it's not necessarily the loss of a loved one, it's the
Mm-hmm.
loss of something you value to be important to you. The important thing with grief is you have to go through the stages. What's happening, Miss Joy, is that people are getting through stages of grief and they don't like the way that stage feels. And so either they skip it or revert back and they get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about grief is it has to be resolved, because if it's not, it's going to try to resolve itself. Case in point, I remember in school I had a professor who had a very traumatic loss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the very next day he shows up and he tries to teach us. And now we are young, up and coming, few soon to be psychologists. And we're like, now we know that
Mm-hmm.
ain't right. Like, you should be home. And I'll be okay. I'm good. I can handle it. Kept going through life. And one day we got a phone call that he was on the highway and in the middle job. And thank God he's alive. It broke. He had to pull over the side of the highway and let everything out.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Why am I saying that? It is super important that if you need to cry, if you need to be angry, if you need to be by yourself, go through the stages of grief and don't get arrested. When you get arrested, it then becomes chronic. When it becomes chronic, it becomes maladaptive. Now we're at this point where the child who has died, the room has been in the same condition for 10 years. And can't nobody go in the room and sit on the bed.
Mm. Wow.
Now we're going to the point where every day where we are opening up the obituary 5 days later, 5 years later, crying the same way we did when they first died. Now at this point where you're going to the graveyard every day for 7 years, crying the way you did when it first happened. It has to be resolved. Will life be the same? Probably not. Can you live life in the absence? That's the point of the stages.
Mm. Now, let me ask this question as well, because a lot of times, and this was, I was approached with this question, and the question was simply this: why do we automatically say to people, be strong? And being that strength means that I have to uphold everybody else while I'm breaking inside, while, I'm at that point where I just need to break down, but I'm being told that I have to stay strong for
You
everybody.
know, that is such a great question, and it annoys me because
Mhm,
I feel like there should be times even the superhero should have the ability to be weak. Now I feel like weakness is always seen as negative. And it's unrealistic, it's inhumane to always believe that we could be strong in everything.
mhm,
Certain things in our life require certain responses in certain states. And to deny that denies your human experience. I need to know sometimes what it feels to be weak so that when I'm strong and I see somebody else weak, I can minister to them in that
mhm,
state.
mhm.
Um, Again, remember I said God wants to experience the totality of everything. The Bible says, in our weakness, what?
Yes, we are
He's
made
made strong.
strong.
You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying? So I don't understand some of these things because it's like, y'all, like, this goes against everything we preach. But on top
mhm.
of that, it's not human.
Yes,
It's because you're
yes.
going to break down. And now here goes this mask again. You're pretending to be
Mhm.
strong when you're breaking inside. You go home and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you're broken in pieces. No, be honest. It's some moments I'm one of those people because of what I do. Um, I'm always gonna get a phone call. Help me with this. Help me with this. What do you think about this? What do you think?
Mhm,
Literally every day, it's gonna be 5, 6 people. That's how it is.
mhm,
Clients, and it's
mhm,
some days I say, you know what? I really don't have the strength today for this.
mhm,
And people often respect that. Like, thank you for recognizing that. Well, I don't feel well in my emotions today to deal with this. And so you have to know when you have the emotional capacity to
mhm.
deal with things that people present to you, because faking the funk is going to do further damage for you, especially if you're broken.
Mhm, mhm. And, a lot of times, we sit back and when we hear about catastrophic things that happen to those that are in, especially leadership, and when it comes to the church, when I heard about a pastor that did not show up at his pulpit one morning, and then they find out that he committed suicide. When things like this happen in our community, and we sit back, and the first thing we say is, I didn't see that coming. And a lot of times it's because we push people in a box. We put them in a box and we dictate to them how you're supposed to act.
How you're supposed, how we,
Mhm.
or how we expect you to act. Like my
Ex
thing is, you're
Yeah.
my pastor. I'm only supposed to see you strong. That's one thing I love about my pastor. He's gonna let you know
Mhm.
I don't have it today. To me,
Mhm.
you will always get the respect because it's
Yes.
truthful. And I
Yes.
tell people when you're honest about being human and when
Mm.
you're honest about your moments of weakness, people show grace. People don't show grace, people are always strong. That's because they expect you to be that.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
they show
Yeah.
grace when you say, you know what, I'm usually strong, but today I'm not. People really value honesty and vulnerability more than we know they do.
Mhm. And, I am learning how to say, "I am not okay today," and be okay with
And
saying
and
that.
be okay. And I
Mhm.
don't and you also have to be okay with people's response to you saying
Mhm.
that, right?
Yeah.
Meaning I could be like, I'm not okay today. Oh, why are you acting like that? I just don't have it and I'm sorry. Now I'm gonna
Mhm.
go home. It's been time. I'm like, you know what? Let me take a nap.
Mhm.
Let me get something good to eat. Let me watch my favorite show and I'm gonna come back to you. Right.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
need to do something for me that builds me up and fills my cup so I can pour. A lot of people pour from empty cups.
Yes. Oh my God. That's a preach right there. I love it. I love it. And that is so true because I remember I was sitting there at work one day and I was talking to someone and they said, "Well, I don't mean to dump all of this on you, but let me just tell you what's going on in my life." And at the moment I was, dealing with something else in my family that had just happened. And I'm sitting here trying to focus on what the other person's problem is and trying to suppress what's going on with me. And then I finally had a moment where I stopped and I said, "Look, I have a lot that's going on with me today." I said, "I cannot take this on too." I said, "I just want to be honest with you today." I said, "Maybe if you can call me later on tonight or either tomorrow and we can talk about it." But knowing those boundaries and being able to stay with those
I
boundaries.
was just about to say, thank you. That's called
Mhm,
implementation of boundaries.
mhm,
A lot of people who tend to take on at the idea of them being a strong friend
mhm,
or the one who always saves, always the hero. There's issues with boundaries,
mhm, mhm.
and so you have to learn how to implement. I wrote a book. It came out January 1. It's called Nuggets for Your Journey. Right here.
Wow,
It's
okay,
called
okay.
Nuggets for Your Journey, not the ones you eat. And in the book, I talk about boundaries. And it's important that you said that because I actually want to read something really small from it if I can find it.
Mhm,
But it literally says we have to implement boundaries.
mm.
Boundaries are lines of demarcation between you and it.
Oh,
This
wow.
particular nugget is called assert yourself. It says
Mhm.
the first step to implementing boundaries is determining where demarcation needs to occur. This
Wow.
place, this section or space will reveal itself in several ways. Here are the ways: places of strain,
Mm,
relationships that drain, and behaviors or actions of others that cause pain. Those are
wow.
three ways you know that you need to implement boundaries.
Mm,
Places of strain,
mhm,
relationships that drain, and
mhm.
behaviors that cause pain. I'm saying that because a lot of us are in things and we feel the need to be I'm gonna make it work, or I'm gonna be the strong friend, I'm gonna be the strong family member, and it's tearing you apart.
Yes, yes.
It is tearing you apart and breaking you apart. You
Mhm,
have to know when it's time to put a line of demarcation between you and
mhm,
it to
mhm.
save yourself.
Wow. Wow.
Self-preservation is the name of the game in some seasons. Now we give selflessly, we give ourselves, we give our time, but there's sometimes you have to focus on self-preservation. If
Mhm.
not, you'll be consumed and
Yes.
obliterated by other people's problems and
Yes.
situations and your own.
Yes, yes. And you know what? That is so and it's a shame that I took 50, I can say my whole adult life, I can say for 25 years that I never had boundaries. And, my phone would ring 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And people would always tell me, I know you're going to be up. I know you're going to be up, not realizing that I'm sacrificing my sleep to talk. And I did that for 25 years of my life until I came to the point of when I needed someone 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to pick up that phone and call, and I just need someone to listen. I didn't have that.
That
And
always does it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so when that light bulb came on, I had to learn about boundaries. And they don't
Yeah.
always feel good, but I'm telling you, it has helped me so much.
And you get much
Like
more
just
sleep
one
now.
year. What
You
did
get
you
much
say?
more sleep. You get much more sleep now, huh?
I do, I do, I do. When I actually get like 7 hours of sleep, I get excited,
Yeah,
but it's
and I think
needed. It's needed.
reciprocity will help you make
Mhm.
determination when boundaries happen. Um,
Yes.
I've noticed just in sessions with a lot of people, they
Mhm,
always have the aha moment when
mhm,
they're with people or they're there for people. And they
mhm,
turn around and they don't have somebody pouring into them, and they say, "You know what? I won't ever do that again."
mhm,
And so reciprocity or the lack thereof, oftentimes, what you know when boundaries are necessitated.
mhm. That is so true. That is so true. I want to take a break right now and say thank you so much for listening to WBIS Awesome Radio 106.9 LPFM. You're in tune to Enjoying the PM, Positive Motivations with yours truly, Joy Brown, and also Talk It Out with Joy on GPAC 23. Thank you all so much with my guest today, Gene Hoskins, a psychologist. Also, I want to talk a little bit about what he does outside of his profession. I feel like both of them are professions, but I want to talk about your other profession, should I say, before we get out of here. Time is moving forward so quickly, but let's talk about mental health with the youth at this point, especially
Mm.
with COVID the last 2 years, being in isolation, some students. And I noticed that coming back to school, because in August of last year, working in the school system, last year the kids came back to school face to face, and then all of a sudden they had so many breakouts, fights, and I'm trying to comprehend what is actually going on, what happened to those students while they were in isolation, should I say, or quarantine.
So much. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go back to that. I tell people, and I was joking the other day.
Hmm.
I'm so glad I didn't have social media when I was in high school. Social media didn't really hit till I was in college.
Hmm.
I'm so glad that a lot of things we're seeing, there was still some kind of the morality needle was just a little more than it was than it is now.
Hmm.
And so a lot of things we see on TV and the kids are inundated with or they're seeing is a lot different from what we see. Their
Yes.
way to me is harder. You know,
Hmm.
when we was in school, when I was in middle school, late '90s. You know, if you had an issue with somebody, I didn't have to worry about them creating a secret page about me on social media, me going home and reading it. I didn't have to
Yes.
worry about pictures of me, you know, at school, you know, something crazy just floating around. Like we didn't have to worry about
Mm-mm.
that. And so they automatically have to deal with a lot. But
Hmm.
in the process of a very global pandemic, that when we first saw it online, we were seeing bodies dropping, particularly disproportionately African Americans. That was scary in of itself.
Hmm.
To one day be at school on a school bus, playing on the playground, and next thing having to be at home for months because we don't know how this thing is going to happen. That was pretty challenging. A lot of these kids lost people. They lost mothers and fathers and pastors, and so they were dealing with grief. A lot of kids socially were not able to get what they needed socially from their peers. Um, just think about everything they lost and what they've been inundated with. On top of that, we had the breakout riots. We saw George Floyd die in the street,
Hmm.
and all
Hmm.
the things they were exposed to in an 8 month period, that they don't have the mental faculties, they don't have the emotional maturity to process.
Hmm.
That is really hard.
Hmm.
On top of that, they're forced to sit around the computer all day and have to learn what they probably learn better in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that's challenging. And so I was telling I have quite a few friends that are vice principals and teachers and principals. I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested to see, because we're not going to see it right away, but in a
Mm-hmm.
few
Mm-hmm.
years, we're going to see the impact that this pandemic has had on academic achievement and emotional development.
Wow.
Because the kids, especially the babies that were born in the pandemic and they
Mm-hmm.
missed kindergarten and first grade and missed that socialization, we're going to see the impact of that for a
Wow.
while.
Mm. Wow. Wow. And what type of impact do you think you will do you foresee?
I think definitely academic. Um, I think a lot of the kids in elementary school I think it would definitely get better socially. They got to learn how to navigate um, the school environment. How to they used to doing kindergarten in their living room on a computer. Then they
Mm.
got to go home to the school in the classroom and sit down and raise their hand and go to the rest. Like think about stuff like this, the little
Mhm.
stuff like that. And there
Mhm.
are things we're taught in social interaction in school. We're
Mhm.
taught how to put out conflict and navigate conflict in school. All of that. I think we're going to see how the pandemic impacted that.
Wow.
Um, we saw an increase in anxiety and depression, not
Mhm.
just with youth, but adults,
Mhm.
because of what we were
Yeah.
being inundated with and the losses we experienced and what we
Mm.
were told was going to happen, like all
Mhm.
of that.
Wow. Wow. I'm telling you, um, you've given a lot of great information today. A lot
Thank you. Well,
of
thank you
great
for having
information.
me, first of all. Yeah.
Great information. It's my pleasure. Thank you, because I know that your schedule is very busy, and I know that you have a lot going on. For you to take the time out, to share your profession with us and give us some insight. I also want to ask you this question: what is your advice as far as individuals who notice that my child may be acting out per se? I don't like to use that word, but you notice your child is acting out, and the first thing they want to do, especially to some of our children, put them on medication.
hmm Um,
How
I always tell,
how
I'm
can we
sorry.
go ahead?
I always tell people get more than one opinion. More than one opinion. Just like with the doctor, if we got a diagnosis, we probably go to one or more doctors just to be sure.
Mhm,
Same thing. Um, and also, if the child is acting out, you have responsibility.
mhm.
And I'm gonna give this what I tell my clients, and then I'll show you tell you why I'm sharing this. McDonald's
Okay.
has a cheeseburger, Burger King has a cheeseburger, Cookout has one.
Mhm.
Just because McDonald's cheeseburger may not be my cup of tea, and Burger King or Cookout may be better, doesn't mean it's not a bad burger. It's not my taste. Same thing with a therapist. You have
Mhm.
responsibility to find what cheeseburger, quote unquote, works
Wow.
for your child, right?
Mhm,
Because there's some therapists that can pull things out of them, they identify with it, and some they're like, I don't want to talk to them. And it may be with that particular therapist, we determine the best course of action. It
mhm,
may just be that therapy with a little bit of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or
mhm.
some talk therapy, or that may be the best for the child, or maybe this therapist says, "Hey, we've established rapport. I've done some of this, therapy from CBT, but I also do think some medicine may be beneficial. But I do believe that if medication is on the table, I would highly recommend just get a second opinion,
Mhm.
and it won't hurt
Okay. Okay. Now, we are actually in our last 5 minutes. Wow, I can't
already.
believe, yeah,
Wow,
I
wow.
cannot believe this. But I want you to give some advice to those that may be having a hard time, whether it's the loss of a loved one, or
Mm,
maybe the loss, like you said, of other relationships, or something that has occurred in their life
hmm
traumatically.
hmm
How give some advice to that individual that's seeking help, that don't know what to do and which way to
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I tell people whenever something traumatic happens or a loss happens, go through the process. And I keep saying it was happening.
turn.
People get arrested in stages, and people get arrested in certain ideas, and it before you realize it, time has elapsed, and you're
Mhm.
getting older, and you're still stuck in the thing that broke you. When
Yeah.
a person dies, when something dies, when a dream dies, when a job dies, a relationship dies, we don't need two deaths on that day. Too
Mm.
many people are dying when something dies.
Wow.
You have a responsibility to the memory of whatever it is that died to
Hmm.
live.
Hmm.
Um, and so you learn to live life without them, but you live. You learn to still honor their memory and miss them, but love what they left. But
Wow.
we don't need two deaths on that day.
I like that.
And a lot of people come to me and I said, you don't realize that you died too. So let's breathe life into you again.
Hmm.
And let's live. Let's live. And I know it seems easy said and done, but you do what's necessary. You talk to your therapist. You talk to your pastor. You get those friends that you're gonna be vulnerable with. That whatever you say,
Hmm.
it stays with them. Now you got
Hmm.
them friends. I can't tell you anything because it's gonna be out over there. And you know, and then
Absolutely.
we got to do. Then I got to fight you on the street, and I don't want to do that. And I'm playing. We don't
Hmm.
fight in the street. You know? But you have those friends that you can
Yeah.
show them you, not the
Hmm.
actor you, but you. Those
Hmm.
are the ones you get around. You do those things that bring you joy, right?
Yes. Yes.
You ever like just for example, like a lot of people, unfortunately, with the snow, when they probably try to start their car, the battery probably didn't turn over, and what
Hmm.
they needed was a jump. There are some
Hmm.
times in life you have to find a
Wow.
thing that jumps your battery. Find that thing that kind of gives you a jolt, a happiness, and you keep going.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Gene Hoskins, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you. I really do. And I say, continue on helping people make sense out of life because
Mm,
that's what you're doing.
glory to
And
God.
I appreciate you, and I also said before we get off, I need to share this as well. He is an awesome psalmist,
Oh, thank
praise and
you.
worship. He's one of the praise and worship leaders at my church, and when I tell you, he will literally. I feel like I have ran a marathon after you do praise and worship. But I thank God for the anointing on your life. And I
Glory
bless
to God.
God that you're changing lives. You're changing lives. So I want you to, we have about 3 minutes, 3 minutes. And I want you to, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. So
Mhm,
don't get me afterwards, okay? Don't get me afterwards.
mhm,
But just a song of healing because
mhm.
someone had mentioned through in the comments, they said that music is healing, and you mentioned
Absolutely.
that at the very beginning. So
Okay.
if there is a song that you could, and I know we talked about
Some
your sinus.
sinuses.
Yeah.
Y'all might be a little raggedy, but I'm gonna try. So if you hear me crack, it's my little sinuses going on. But yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I had an album come out
Mhm.
last year. It's called Homecoming.
Mhm.
Please go get it.
All
It's
right.
absolutely a body of work that I'm so grateful about.
Mhm.
Um, but in particular, there was a song called "Deal." And I told you when I was praying, God was like, just because it's silent, don't mean it's dead.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
began to write from that revelation of what He told me. And that song is on the album. And to this day, anytime I get word from that song, like I have people that just boo hoo. And even when I'm singing, I'm crying, but it came from my personal experience. So I'm gonna sing a little bit.
Okay.
It says, don't mistake the silence for death. It's only simply quiet. You gotta be real and deal. God can heal what you reveal. You only can pretend for so long that you're doing fine, that you moved on. Take some time to breathe, and you'll see there's victory after tragedy. Oh, be free. Oh, be free. My favorite part says, from every broken place to every empty space, there is a grace for you to face it and be free. Oh, yes, there is. There is a grace for you to face and be free. Next part says, freedom in your mind, freedom in your soul, freedom from your past, freedom to let go. God is going to give you that freedom and that grace. Freedom in your mind, freedom in your soul, freedom from your past, freedom to let go from every broken place. Hallelujah. To every empty space, there is a grace, y'all, for you to face whatever it is and be free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is a grace, God, for you to
Joy
face.
Brown Radio Show. Enjoying the PM. It's time to go. So come on, come on. Let's live out loud. Let's love out loud. Let's do it some more. So come on, come on, come on. Come on, let's live out loud, let's love out loud, let's do it some more, let's do it some more. Enjoying the PM. Oh, yeah, it's time to go, it's time to go. Live out loud, love out loud, let's do it some more. Enjoying the PM, enjoying the PM. Yeah, it's time to go, yeah, it's time to go. Living out loud, loving out loud, let's do it some more. Yeah, so come on. Living out loud, loving out loud, let's do some more. Come on.
Christian inspiration for the family and ministry teaching for
Okay, you can hear me, and we are still on Facebook. Phenomenal. I got so caught up in the song that I didn't even recognize at the time was still moving. But I am
That's
so
okay.
thankful for you. So thankful for you. I appreciate God. I appreciate the gift of God that He has given you, or the gifts that He has given you. And while we're still on Facebook, I want you to go ahead and tell people about your book, because you mentioned a book. Talk about your book. Again, I want you to talk about your release. And I think they call them EPs now, or is this a full project?
This is a full project. I had an EP before, so I have other
Okay.
ones. I'll talk about all of it. Yeah. So I started the book. I released my first book January 1. This is don't look at this is my personal copy. It's called Nuggets for Your Journey, Not the Ones You Eat. And what happened was, over the years of doing therapy, I would write down things. I said, oh my gosh, I really like that. I think I'm going to keep it for later to use for other people. And over the years, I began to accumulate things that I really liked. And so what did I do? I put it all in the book with pages for you to reflect on the nuggets. It's a short read. It's easy. It's like a plane ride. It's a bus ride, but it's a journal for you to sit with and process nuggets. It's nuggets on healing, relationships, motivation, and self-worth. I've been getting a lot of good feedback. I'm partnering with some colleges and some churches. So that's exciting. Also, I released an album called Homecoming last year. It hit #1 on gospel iTunes charts, and so that was really exciting. And then I signed a record deal, and they re-released it. And so,
Congratulations!
Thank you. I signed it in August of last year, and so me and my label have been pushing my new single called "Make It With Jesus." It's hitting radio very soon now as we speak. And so, if you hear the song, call and tell me you like it. And we're planning some cool things. And I am doing a live in-person concert at the River Church March 12th at 4 p.m. It's kind of early than usual because I want you all home by 7 o'clock because I don't want y'all missing church on Sunday. Amen. So by 7 o'clock, you're either at your house eating or L house eating. But we're doing that, and just connect with me on social media. I'm Gene Hoskins on Facebook, and I am Gene Hoskins on Instagram. Believe me, I talk back. Um, I like to talk to people, if you can't tell by now. But I look forward to connecting with everyone who tries to connect with me.
Yeah. Now, what platforms can we get your CD?
The CD is everywhere. iTunes, Amazon. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you see. And I'm a bald headed brother, so you're gonna see me. You'll see me with a beard and a cool little jacket, and just stream it up. Share with your people.
Okay.
It's different styles of music and all the. I'm a writer, so I wrote everything on there, and I have other music that you'll see connected to it. And so I would love for you to partake and listen to it. I get videos every day of people that just listen to it getting dressed or at work, or some people play it. I've heard one of my songs they play at a AA meeting, which blessed my heart. Yeah, it encouraged me. Yeah, and so I'm excited about that. And then the book is on Amazon only for right now.
Amazon. Okay.
Amazon, and we hit #1 for new releases when they came out as well. And so y'all did y'all did really well for me. And so God is so faithful. He gets all the glory. Literally, there's no goodness of my own. It's not my gifts, but the gifts He's given me for His people. And so it's been a blessing.
Thank you so much. I am so proud of you. So proud of you. Awesome. Awesome. So don't forget March the 12th at 4:00 p.m.
Tickets are coming out soon, and I'm going to release my features. Some of these people y'all know, and y'all be like, wait a minute, they're coming to sing and hang out with me. It's going to be really fun.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely get my ticket, and I will be there.
Okay.
And Amazon and all of the platforms you can pick up.
Anywhere you listen to music, you can look me up, Gene Hoskins, Homecoming.
Okay. All right. I definitely got to get that tonight because I love that song that you were singing. It was ministering to my heart. Thank you again so much. And I pray God's continual blessings upon everything that you put your hands to. Continue on being that light. Continue on walking in the path that God has ordained for you, because I'm telling you, this is just the ice. This is not even, I don't even think you have even, you're close to maximizing what God has for you.
And I receive it. Thank you.
I don't. Continue on being faithful. You are definitely an example of God allowing your gifts to make room for you and bring you before great.
Listen, I've seen His hand, so I know that to be true. It's some stuff I'm like, God, I don't know how I'm doing this, but I look up sometimes like, oh, this ain't nobody but God. But I'm gonna honor it. So thank you so much for the platform, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
All righty, you take care.
Right. Take care.
Wonderful night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight on Enjoying the PM, Positive Motivations with yours truly, Joy. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming on, and have a blessed night. We will see you next month. Same time, same place, right here on WBIS Awesome Radio 106.9 LPFM. God bless and good night.